Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the Frontier PMO, Co-Intelligent Human and AI Value Delivery, presented by Innovative E. My name is Stephanie Taylor, and I'm your moderator. Today, we're going to talk about things that are reshaping the future of project and work management. Microsoft is retiring Project Online. AI is rapidly transforming how work gets done. And many PMOs are trying to understand what all of this means for their future. Before we dive in, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording, along with the slide deck, will be sent to you via email in the next few days. You are free to review the content at your convenience or share it with colleagues who couldn't attend today. Please use the Q&A feature on the right side panel of this platform to ask questions. We will address as many questions as possible as time permits. If you encounter any technical issues, such as audio or video problems, please use the chat function to notify us, and we'll do our best to assist you very promptly. Your speakers today are Mike Taylor and Tad Haas. Mike is the founder and CEO of Innovative E. He began his career writing PPM software for NASA and is a recognized visionary in project and work management with deep experience as a practitioner, industry thought leader, a published author, and a process and application innovator. Mike's book, The AI Project and Work Management Revolution, is here. Practical strategies for seizing this moment to become a higher performing organization with happier people is available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audio format. As a special thank you, today's webinar attendees will receive a free digital copy. We'll have details at the end of the presentation. Tad Haas is a Director of Business Development at Innovative E, helping organizations modernize how work gets done using Microsoft's AI-powered platform. A former Microsoft leader, Tad is a PPM veteran and a certified front-end of innovation and AI champion. Tad brings more than 25 years experience across PPM, product strategy, and business growth. He's deeply focused on evolving the PMO and enabling teams to move faster, adapt smarter, and drive better outcomes. Innovative E is an 8-time Microsoft Award winner, including back-to-back Worldwide Partner of the Year winner in 2023 and 2024 for project and portfolio management. We partner with organizations to modernize the entire project and work management ecosystem through a platform-first approach. With expertise in AI and Copilot, we deliver sustainable solutions that give your business the agility it needs to thrive and help you become a higher performing organization with happier people. With the introductions out of the way, let's get started. I'm pleased to hand the floor over to Mike and Tad. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Steph, for that great introduction. Tad, good to see you again. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Indeed, Mike, as always. And I was just going to comment about what a quick and easy, useful read the book is as people are getting their toes dipped in the AI waters for project management. So take up that offer, people, as you go through and do. And feel free to go through and drop in questions or comments in the chat. I'll be monitoring and answering as we go along. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and we're going to be interactive today, as you said, Tad. So we're going to start, keep everybody on their toes. We've got a poll question right out of the gate here. How would you describe your organization or PMO and the relationship with AI right now? Is it curious but cautious, actively experimenting with productivity enhancement like Copilot for meetings, etc.? Are you adopting AI more deeply, project management via tools, agents, etc.? Or are you skeptical or sort of locked out or locked down in what you can do within your organization? So I think is the poll live? I think it's live.
And of course, as people are answering that poll, Mike, there's sort of almost two answers to this. What are we experimenting as project managers or individuals? And then what do our companies allow us to do within our constraints there? So
that is
certainly
true.
Something to think about.
Yeah, and certainly something we see a lot of, right, Ted? There's a I remember when mobile was really got big in computing. Everybody was talking about BYOD, bring your own device, mobile and tablets and everything. Now it's bring your own AI. So everybody's out there experimenting with it. You may have Gemini, Claude, Copilot, GPT, all these different things that are out there at the individual level. But what are you able to do within your organization as it comes to work management? So I didn't actually see the poll go up. Maybe it did. If it didn't, I did see a few people answering here. Looks like
Yep.
there's some curious. Oh, there it is. And there's the results. Nice. Actively experimenting is way out in front. Looks like 76%. Cautious but curious, 6%. And adopting AI, about 10%. And skeptical but locked out. I'm actually surprised that the skeptical or locked out's not actually higher. We have seen a lot of folks who they have their IT departments or their newly formed AI governance councils and things like that are kind of taking it in that direction. So, okay, let's move on. Let's close the poll and keep moving. All right, great. All right. So, what are the takeaways for today? Let's frame it in 4 key things that you'll learn. First, we want to talk about the implications of Project Online retirement. I know not everybody may be using Project Online, but it is interesting from Microsoft's perspective and how they're evolving their ecosystem and shaping the work and project management landscape. Second, we'll explore what the Frontier PMO model is. Some people may not really be familiar with that concept of the Frontier firm or Frontier PMO, so we'll talk a little bit about that and how co-intelligent collaboration between humans and AI can accelerate insight, decision-making, and value delivery. We'll also look at the Microsoft 365 platform. An awful lot of people on the planet are on that platform. I think about a billion people, and there's 300 or 400 million that are on Teams already, and how it's being used for work orchestration, including planner AI agents, platform-based orchestration, and approaches to that kind of thing. We'll see an agent demo here from Microsoft. And finally, we'll look at practical strategies and steps for positioning your PMO for AI-enabled work and management. Organizations move beyond traditional PM tools and towards platform-based orchestration. And here you'll see a Teams for PM co-intelligent agent here. So we told you we're going to keep you on your toes. We're right into poll question number 2. So let's look at which takeaway interests you the most of those 4 that we just talked about? The implications of Project Online retirement. Is it the Frontier PMO model? Learning more about that. How Microsoft capabilities support modern work orchestration. And that, of course, includes project management. And seeing practical steps for positioning your PMO for AI-enabled work management. We have a horse race going. Looks like Frontier PMO ran out to the beginning, but it looks like the practical steps for positioning your PMO for AI-enabled work is kind of pulling ahead there. And by the way, we do use this. Tad and I will be using what are hearing you guys' feedback here a little bit to guide some of the discussion and way we'll approach questions and Q&A and all that kind of stuff. All right. Yep, it looks like seeing the practical steps is out in front, and Frontier PMO and M365 are up there at about 17 to 20%. But practical steps is way in front, so that's awesome. Okay, we'll be covering some of that. So let's close the poll. Anything surprise you there, Tad?
I think it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier today about use cases. So showing PMOs and PM managers how to accomplish work and how to manage things all together, like in the flow of the work, as you like to say.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about Project Online retirement, and we could spend a lot of time talking about the impact of what Microsoft's had on the world of project portfolio management. Microsoft Project for many years. I know you and I lived through a lot of that in the early days of Project, and Project Desktop was the gold standard for project management software for many decades, actually 2 or 3 decades. But then, of course, they migrated it to the client server and then into the cloud, and now they're retiring the cloud version of it. So that actually signals something, right? I think it really means that Microsoft is really no longer thinking about creating PPM tools. And in fact, they sort of came right out and said it, right? They said, we're no longer building in 2018 or 19, I think they said, we're no longer building PPM tools. We're going to build a platform for PPM. I think it also it shows a shift by Microsoft away from a tool-centric approach. Um, and their recognition, and this isn't just Microsoft, this is the market. A lot of analysts and other folks are talking about how work no longer fits inside projects, right? We talk a lot about that, Tad, right? You mentioned just a second ago, the flow of work. Where is the actual flow of work and the collaboration and things that are happening? AI obviously changes the picture entirely, and it has AI. I think about it a little bit like Pac-Man. It needs to eat it keeps going along. It's always needs to eat something, and the thing that AI eats is data, and it's got to be good data, and so it changes the architectural discussion a lot. So architecture really does matter, and lastly, the PMO must evolve, and the retirement of Project Online is really we interpret that as the signal that the Frontier PMO era has begun, and it's really time to really start moving in that direction. So on September 5th, for those who didn't catch the memo or the discussion or the all the different things that were out there about the retirement, Microsoft did formally announce the retirement of Project Online on September 5th again, and it was sort of received differently within the community, wouldn't you say? Are you a Ted Lasso fan, Ted?
I am definitely a Ted Lasso fan, and I think you're understating the reception.
Maybe it was a little bit like Roy Kent's bench flip here.
One of my favorite early episodes.
It was season 1. I can't remember which episode, maybe 6 or 7. I can't remember, but it was. I've seen the whole series a couple times. So, but yeah, people weren't very happy about it. There's still a lot of consternation, but it's disruption, right? And disruptive is by nature disruptive. So, but on a serious note, how are folks reacting to this? And we see very discrete, different ways of reacting to it, right, Tad? We see some organizations are kind of putting their head in the sand in terms of maybe hoping that it won't actually happen. And there seems to be an accelerating number of conversations we're having these days. Folks are like, okay, maybe I really do need to do something about it. We see a lot of folks that are in kind of the analysis paralysis. They're analyzing their options. In many cases, they don't see that there's great options. There wasn't, enough timeline in a lot of customers' viewpoint and partners' viewpoint to really prepare for this. It was 1 year, not quite 13 months. Going to Project Server Subscription Edition, which is something that Microsoft's recommending, which is certainly a option for folks who have very complex customizations and integrations and things like that they need to basically buy time. And we're actually helping people in 4 of the 5 of these approaches, right? And that's certainly one that we're helping folks with. We're doing some white glove treatment there for folks who need to get that done in a timely fashion to make the deadline. Modernization is another path, and Microsoft has a modernization approach. A lot of folks are still reticent to do that for a variety of reasons, but modernization is an approach we've been taking folks on and actually bringing folks into a platform-based approach. And it's really important at that point to realize that you're not really going product to product. You're not comparing something like a planner to a project or a Project Online. It's not meant to be the same thing. It's really you're looking at a platform-based play. So it's the whole M365 platform and things that help make it work better for project management. And then there are folks who are replatforming to other SaaS products. Anything you'd like to add to that, Tad?
I think you've covered it. There are lots of choices. It's deciding to take action, as was just mentioned in the chat and comment Q&A. So research and then take action, because nothing's waiting any longer. It's all just full bore ahead.
It is full bore ahead, no doubt. Okay, let's get into a little bit of a look forward now on what is the Frontier PMO and the Frontier firm. So what's interesting is this is from Microsoft's. For those who don't follow it, they do a work trend index every year, and it comes out in April. So the 2026 version should be out any day now, I expect. But this is from the 2025, and they were talking about how the Frontier firm is being born, and of course Microsoft looks at this through the lens of all work management, and it's a broader framing of what the journey will look like for all organizations as they move towards becoming a Frontier firm. We obviously believe that this is a direct correlation to project management because project management is a subset of the broader work management classification, right? And we could go into more detail, but note that there's sort of a three-step pattern that experts are seeing, and this isn't just Microsoft. This is industry experts of how folks are looking at this from a kind of individual productivity to humans and agents working together. Agents are things that are sort of autonomous and can go do work. AI that can do work on its own, and we'll show a little bit about that in a few minutes. And then human-led kind of agent operations. So it's more of an autonomous working collective, if you will, of people and AI working together in the future. So that's sort of sets the tone here at the firm level, at the organizational level. So, project management's a subset of work management, as we said. So there's really a few things that are driving this. And, this first statement, chaotic work, does this resonate? I think it probably does for folks, right? Work has always been there's always been more work to do than human abilities, but now with the advent of AI and automation increasing ever faster, we really are exceeding the ability for humans to keep up with everything. So the volume and complexity of work is kind of outpace human capability, and we all feel it, right? Meetings, chats, tasks, documents. No project management leader or project portfolio management leader can realistically process it, all the time. And the other piece is that there's a shift going on to humans actually focusing on higher value tasks and not a lot of people are calling it the administrative capabilities. Some people are calling it the admin tax for project management of, building. We talk a lot about this. We see it all the time. People are in spreadsheets. They've got multiple project management systems. I think we don't have the stat here, but I believe IDC a couple of years ago said that the average organization has 5.7 project and work management tools. So there's a lot of different things that are out there that people are trying to do and trying to stitch together stuff to understand where you are in a project to then be able to do something and make it move forward in a timely fashion and get to the results you want, right? So this really brings us to what is the new project management operating model and how kind of humans and AI can orchestrate enterprise value. And at the end of the day, that's what we've always been chasing as project managers and portfolio managers, right, Tad? Is trying to get to the value outcome. But in doing so, we've often focused on more of the things that will help lead to that because we know that we have to do those things. We'll talk more about that in a little while, governance and standards and process and all those kinds of things. But the emerging model is collaboration between humans and AI, and allowing AI to surface signals. And what that really means when you hear people talk about surfacing signals is it's actually doing analysis. It's not just doing algorithmic things like go find all the issues or risks that are in a issues log, or go out and it's actually looking at things and doing interpretation based on all the things that AI can know, reasoning over a good data set. And that data set is your data set. And that's what's really important to talk about too is, task, conversations, risk, all that things. It's in your environment, each customer and each organization's environment. That's where the really bespoke data exists around what you're trying to accomplish. And it's important that that's where AI, like the Pac-Man thing, and that's where it can consume. They call it grounding. It really shifts the PMO from project tracking and compliance to decision-making intelligence. So, it moves away from task management per se. It doesn't mean that task management is still not important, but that's not the key focus. And then, of course, integrated data architecture. And it's really ultimately about orchestrating value and value outcomes. So what is the modern work platform? Well, if you're a Microsoft customer, that platform, the center of gravity of all your work is the M365 platform, right? This is where work is already happening. You talked about it a minute ago, Tad. Again, I'll bring back up the flow of work. Every day we're completely Microsoft centric in everything that we do. We're on Teams, we're in Teams meetings, we're in chats, we're sharing artifacts, we share them internally, externally. When we're executing projects with our customers, we're using different tools that are in there. We might be using ADO, we're using Planner all the time to manage schedules, and we'll talk a little bit more about the product that we developed that helps manage and orchestrate all that. But we're inside there all day, every day, right? So it's really a platform-centric AI native built for how work happens, and you'll see Microsoft talks about that all the time. And so if this is the center of gravity of work, um, it creates a really interesting dynamic of how you can go reason over the work. And so what I'd like to show you now, you see that I've got project manager scratched out there. Microsoft created an agent that reasons over and actually does things that are pretty interesting. And well, this is their demo from Tad and I were at Ignite in San Francisco back in November. But they've changed the name, which is why I scratched it out. They just changed it days ago, in I think late March, early April. So now it's just called the Planner Agent. And they're actually just releasing some additional functionality. So if anybody's interested, we know what that functionality is. We've seen the pre-release, and I think some of it's actually been made public. But it goes beyond what you're going to see right here. But it was just announced, so things are moving quickly. So let me play this clip for you guys and hear from Howard Crow, who's the director. We know Howard well, and Robin Garello, who we've also met. We had lunch with her at Ignite. Very nice person, and watch them do this Planner Agent demo.
So here I have a plan that I just created for the Trainer Mat marketing project. We don't have any tasks in here right now, so I'm going to employ the project manager agent's help to get this all set up. If I go into the goals tab of the plan, I'm going to be able to specify our objective and what we're looking to achieve. In this case, we're looking to market the trainer mat so that we reach 10,000 sales within the first 6 months of launch. And on this page, I can make sure the agent has all of the right context as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of files related to the trainer mat project that I think will be critical for its understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. And you'll also notice that it has access to web content. So you are always getting the most up-to-date information in the output. So now that we know it has all of the right context available, we can go ahead and have it generate some tasks for us based on our goal. And this is really going to help us kickstart our plan, get past that blank page, and have a starting point that we can build off of. So we have a great set of initial tasks here. And if we go back to the grid view, we can see those. And you'll also notice the project manager agent, of course, now lives in the bottom right corner of your plan to help out. So this is your private chat with the agent to ask any questions that you need. Now, there's one task here that I need to get started on, and I know it's going to take me a while, which is researching competitor messaging and positioning. But I think the project manager agent can help out with this, so I'm going to assign it to that task. And you'll notice that I am assigned right alongside the project manager agent automatically. This is so we have what we call human in the loop, where there is always a human available and assigned to check on the agent's work and make sure that it is accurate and relevant. If we head back into Planner, we can look at the content that it generated for us. It's available in a loop page directly in the task, so you can edit it as needed. And this looks pretty comprehensive and pretty great. It has some great information about the competitors in the space, what their messaging looks like, and how we can stand out. And of course, we have the references at the bottom as well, so we can fact check the work that it did and make sure it is accurate. So this is pretty great. I think we can mark this one as done.
Okay, I tried to zoom in the screen a little bit there. Somebody asked for it, but I couldn't really do it without obfuscating some of it, so sorry about that. That was a pre-recorded video. So let's talk about the path forward. One thing that's interesting about that is that you notice it actually assigned the agent to go do some work. So it wasn't just augmenting the work like I'm sure a lot of people have done with Teams and meeting notes and things like that. It actually went out and did some work, and they're continuing to build on that. So that really works, Tad, on that co-intelligence conversation and concept, right?
Absolutely. The co-intelligence thinking is, I think, for project managers, both the most important thing to think about and what I'm actually seeing in practice. So as I've been having conversations with PMs in healthcare, in manufacturing and everything else, we're using these tools to automate and improve our work-life balance. But as project managers, being that human in the loop, it's our judgment, it's our ability to manage stakeholder relationships, and it's those human attributes that add all the real value. The AI is just helping make it faster and better. And I hate to use a trite statement, but I used to be wowed to the point where it was magic in the AI, but now I realize it's really just another set of tools as we've gone through and used in the past to do our jobs better. Smarter tools, to be sure, but they are tools for humans to do better work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a good point. And in between what you were saying, I was thinking it is changing the role of the project manager and the project team members, though, in so much as it's reducing some of that administrative stuff, like we talked about a few minutes ago, so that you can focus more on the higher value things. The like when you talk about the human in the loop, being that the discernment piece. AI can seem real. And like human is, but it's not, right? And it doesn't necessarily have that discernment that we have. So that's really, I think, going to be one of the things that project managers are going to have to really focus on in their careers going forward. We probably could do a whole thing around the impact on project management career and everything else. I know PMI does a good job on building that, and they're putting it into the new PMBOK and everything else. So interesting stuff and rapidly evolving. So let's talk about the path forward. So this is positioning your PMO, and this seems to be where a lot of people were interested in that one of the early surveys we did today, of what does it look like to move forward. So this is what we sort of see as I would say a transitional or an evolutionary approach that seems to be happening. And we have folks that are, you know, on the far right, and some I wouldn't say we have any that are on. I'm sorry, the far left. I wouldn't say we have any that have fully become frontier, where they've got the autonomous agents and everything else. But we have some that are much further along than others. I'd say most folks we talk to these days are still sort of in that leftmost column where you're talking about traditional ways of doing things, and the lagging. A couple of things I'd like to point out there: the lagging indicators is always been a problem in project management, right? Getting the right data at the right time so that it's actionable. And you're not working with data it's too late to make an informed decision. I think that's starting to be that middle piece that we're starting to see that intersection of mixed and lagging signals starting to come together. So you're seeing some the leading signals, I'm sorry, mixed leading and lagging signals. So we're starting to see some of the leading signals, the predictive indicators, and some of the things that can be more real time that AI is helping with. The other thing I think, of course, it's important to focus on the architecture, that second to bottom thing where you're talking about tool centric versus integrated and then platform centric. But the governance focus, I think, is really important too. There starts to be a mind shift of from traditional governance, so that you're trying to drive value through governance, to you're really starting to embrace the performance aspect, and then you really move to something that is really built around accelerating value, and you can measure that. So that's kind of the progress or the progression of to move towards a frontier PMO. I hope that makes sense. And again, as Tad says in there, we'll be sending the link so you guys can have this stuff and think about how this would apply to your situation.
Well, and we're about to show that too, Mike, about
Mhm.
how your data is now the moat, right? That's where the real secret sauce is for project managers and companies in general. It's the data and the collectiveness of that. You're going
Mhm.
to talk about how Microsoft 365 and that tenant becomes the holder of all the real great data, not just the laggard, reflective look in the back project management data that we're often updating through our systems, but what are we doing forward thinking as we interact with other humans in meetings and collaborations and documents and everything else. So critical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I love that concept, the moat concept. That's great. So again, staying interactive here, keep everybody on their toes. Let's go to the next poll. And we're talking about here, how ready is your PMO to operate as a frontier PMO? Now that we've talked a little bit about the definition and where you might be able to identify where you're at on that continuum, are you really moving in that direction, seeing the vision but don't know where to start, trying to convince leadership? We see a lot of that. Not just leadership, but there's even more complexity in with AI layered into the tool set in the mix now. As we talked about, there's new governance councils, and or there's IT security, which is kind of expanded into the role of maintaining and governing AI as well. And then, of course, honestly, I've recently only heard the term, which is it looks like that may actually be starting to pull away in terms of the and I'm not surprised. It's the concept of frontier is something that is really new. It was just really introduced last year, and again, it wasn't just Microsoft, Gartner, and IDC, and everyone's talking about kind of frontier and what that looks like. And there's like anything with technology, it's kind of there's no perfectly right answer. There's going to be an evolutionary thing that people go through. So it looks like only recently heard the term, so that's good. We'll expound on it a little bit more here, and now we're going to actually get into kind of the foundational components of it. And as Tad said, we're going to actually show you how that works a little bit. So thanks for the participation in that survey. So what we're really going to look at next is a continuum, and you can almost think of this being layered underneath that continuum of how the PMOs are evolving towards. And this is what's happened with the technology, and a lot of people know this. It's lived experience. A lot of us have had going back to the tool era where you had Microsoft Project on the desktop and manual reporting and Oracle Primavera and all these great tools that were around, a few decades ago, started to move into the era of client server and then into SaaS in the mid to 2015 type time frame. Saw a lot of these products pop up. The Mondays, the Smartsheets, the Asanas, all those products and everything that were around, cloud-based project and management and making it easier to have access to these tools. Then we started to kind of migrate into this tool era, platform era that we're seeing now. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And then, of course, the one to the far right, the execution intelligence, which is emerging. But what you're really looking at there is, again, it's kind of a Venn diagram between those last two, right, Dad? We're seeing that there's, the platform centricity, which is becoming more and more of a thing, I think. Different organizations or different vendors are, kind of pushing their platform. I guess our thesis is that if you're already on 365, M365, why not use that platform as the basis to do everything that's in the flow of work? So that's why you see us talking about, everything that's happening on the 365 platform. Doesn't mean we don't embrace and recognize that there's other third-party tools like Jira and Smartsheet and other things that need to be considered if you want to, have a very heterogeneous environment. Notice I highlighted Teams for PM there. We're going to get into a discussion around orchestration using the product which we've developed. What we saw here is, the key idea is work management should live inside the collaboration space. So on the left side, you see all of the Microsoft tools, and this is not all of the Microsoft tools, all the ones that are relevant to the discussion of project and work management. But what we really have done here is we've seen that there's this amazing platform. Microsoft moved forward with the Power Platform and then with AI. All of this, really, the foundational work was going on all the way back to 2010 or so with AI cognitive services and, of course, SharePoint and all those. But then they re-platformed a lot of it to the Power Platform and everything's Azure based. But still, Microsoft is only going to go so far in terms of, like we said before, they're not going to create another PPM tool, and they see the world through the lens of between customers and partners and AI, that there won't really be as much of a need for that type of tool in the future. So what we've done here is we've created the ability to orchestrate work and project management on the Microsoft platform, taking all these things into consideration. And then you see at the bottom there, Smartsheet, Jira, and other third parties. We can integrate those as well. But the key objective here is really to unify people, apps, and data across these different work management systems to be able to bring PPM into the flow of the governed work that's already happening on the M365 platform, and then apply AI assistance and agentic intelligence to actually work with people. So anything you'd like to add to that one, Dad?
I think you've covered most of it. I will say I had a conversation with a program manager yesterday who is actually using Loop of the Microsoft stack, which pulls all of this together sort of in a collaborative workspace. And they were using this as a way to go through and interact to get all of the people together headed in the same direction. And it wasn't that the technology was so great and that now that data is in M365 for AI reasoning going forward, but it was the fact that this program manager used these tools in a collaborative working way in a face-to-face meeting that she's now going to go back and follow up doing in a remote meeting as everyone follows up on the projects that make up that program. So there's just all kinds of new creative, innovative ways people are doing this.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about a little bit how Teams for PM orchestrates work. So one of the key ideas here is that work should live inside where the collaboration, where teams already operate. So Teams for PM creates consistent Microsoft Teams experiences across projects. So this, just if you're familiar with Teams, it looks like Teams down the left side, right? You see your teams and your channels. That's what Teams for PM does. It creates them, but it does it consistently. And then you see the project tab there is actually surfacing the task management tool, which in this case is Planner. And you can have we have it integrated with Project Online, and there's other things that we can bring in as well, like Smartsheet and other Jira and everything else. But the important piece here is that you're sort of bringing all of the management components into the flow of work. Now, to do that, we also augment that with things like executive dashboards that you can give leadership the visibility across all work, across all tools, in unified dashboards, which is a very interesting kind of departure from the past, right, Tad? I mean, getting visibility into what everyone's, if you had the average of 5.7 or 10 or whatever work management tools in there, how do you actually visualize what everyone's doing? And an awful lot of that work is happening outside of the PMO as well, right? It's happening throughout the enterprise. So the idea here is that you can start to bring everything together so that you do have visualization into all those, and then you can start to do goal alignment and things like that. You can also do things like apply AI capabilities, and this is one of the first features we built, which is using AI cognitive services to just, because everyone's doing work in the standard team format, we can monitor the post and apply positivity scoring to it and find out how the sentiment with no human action of any individual project is going, and then compare that against the sentiment of the entire portfolio. So you have a good idea of kind of what's going on in terms of relative to the overall performance with no human interaction. Just gives you additional data points. And because it's all structured, we can also provide all that additional stuff that you would expect to see in terms of your project level dashboards, your risk, your issues, your budget indicators, all the stuff that you would normally expect to see. Now, again, all this data is also, because it's governed and standard, it also is reasoned over by AI as well. Okay, now we want to get into, so we still want to get through the demo here for the Teams for PM agent, and that will leave us a few minutes for some Q&A. And thank you very much for the for the compliment there. So let's talk about what is actually happening here. So the Teams for PM, we're going to talk about an agent. Now, agents live outside the application. So this is not the AI that we showed a second ago that was the positivity scoring. That's actually something built into Teams for PM. Because Teams for PM installs into your M365 environment, now you have this data that can be reasoned over. So this agent is actually sets aside from the Teams for PM product itself, and it's going and reasoning over things like your Project Online, Microsoft Planner, other work management systems that you may have plugged into Teams for PM. It's looking at your metadata, your risk, your issues, lessons learned, resources, requests, all that kind of stuff, and it's able to reason over that. It's also using additional Microsoft productivity tools that are out there, like Outlook and Teams that you're already using, and it's using Copilot to reason over that. So it's doing this all inside the tools that you already use. It's just doing it in a structured and governed way. And so what that does is it gives you the ability to reason over it and do some pretty interesting things. So we've got a short demo I'm going to play here. I think it's a little over a minute long, and we'll show you how it's actually doing this reasoning. And the important thing here is that it's not just algorithmic stuff where it's going and saying, I'm finding issues or risk and surfacing those. It's actually doing analysis and interpretation of things that we ask for it to do. And we sped it up a little bit because you never can tell sometimes how internet speeds and stuff like that. So pre-recorded it and sped it up a little bit. Let's see how this plays out and see what you guys think. Let's start by asking Teams for PM agent a simple question. What can you do for me and how do you do it? The agent explains it reasons across structured data, including collaboration, activity, tasks, schedules, and execution. This allows AI to understand not just what projects say, but what is actually happening across the work. Now let's ask a more interesting question. What can you do by reasoning over Teams for PM data and Microsoft 365 data that a typical SaaS PPM tool cannot? Because Teams for PM operates directly on the M365 platform, the agent can analyze signals across the actual flow of work, not just what gets manually entered into a project system. This creates a much richer picture of execution and risk. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's ask the portfolio where leadership should pay attention this week. Which projects should I be concerned about? Why? And what should I do? In seconds, the agent analyzes signals from across the portfolio, schedule movement, task activity, collaboration patterns, and surfaces the projects most likely to impact delivery. Not just insight, but clear recommendations for intervention. Finally, let's ask the agent to look deeper. Which projects appear healthy but actually aren't? This is where AI reasoning becomes powerful. By correlating signals across work systems, the agent can detect early indicators of delivery risk before they show up in status reports. Most project management AI demos summarize project information. Teams for PM enables AI to reason across work, turning Microsoft 365 and third-party project data into decision intelligence for the Frontier PMO. Pretty cool, huh?
Hey, Mike, before you go on, one of the things that I wanted to highlight on that, and I was going to drop a picture into the chat, but it doesn't allow me. The thing to take away from this is that this is looking across all of your M365 data relevant to these projects. Things like meeting minutes and drafts and stakeholder engagement, documents that are related with these things, chats and conversations that are coming up on it, unresolved mentions and looking at the 80% of our project manager's job, which is collaboration, not management of data inside a SaaS PPM tool. So just think about this as, what it's looking at for those signals, where it's detecting these problems, and then why it matters to us as project managers or PM leaders. So, think quite heavily on the collaboration side of it, not the project management task updating or timesheet kind of stuff.
Right, which is important, but it's going much deeper and much richer than that.
Right.
Great analysis there, Tad. Thank you. So going back to the question we asked at the very beginning in the first slide, where's your PMO going to be in 3 years? Is it going to be a continuation where you are, or is it going to be the reason your business moves faster? Is it going to be the co-intelligent orchestration layer for the platform, and a model that will help lead to be the Frontier PMO? The work, as it says there, the work starts now. So the momentum is picking up, and it's going to be a new world. But I think it's a very exciting world because we see people are able to do things that we've never been able to do in the project management space before to deliver better value. So how can we help you move forward? We'll get to some Q&A here in a second, but we have several offerings here, obviously. And we have a whole set of resources you're going to see in a second. As when Tad saw the page, he goes, "That's a lot of QR codes." So you're going to see it in a second. But if you are impacted by the Project Online deprecation that's coming up, let us know. We obviously are helping a lot of folks with all those different options. Whether it's PSSE or modernizing. What's the right thing to do? But that one is urgent because there's a timeline, and there is no. It's literally one of those things. It's not like when your license expires and you just don't get security patches. They're literally turning the service off, so everything stops. You don't have access to your data, anything. So on September 30th. So if you're in that position, reach out and we can help you. AI assessment and proof of value. There's a lot of folks trying to figure out, where they are, where to start, where to prove value. We've done this for a lot of organizations. We've obviously built tools that, like Teams for PM, that has it embedded into it, and agents that do it. But we're doing it with a lot of organizations in the project and work management space. So there's a lot going on there, and we can help you with that. Also, the rapid project modernization. You might not have Project Online, but you still need to modernize. We have customers who come to us and they have compelling things that are going on within their enterprise. They've got a big system implementation, or they've got a merger or acquisition, or they've got new ways of doing business, or some compliance thing that they've got to do, and they need a better project management solution than the cobbled together solution they have with disaggregated tools. And we have a whole program for doing a rapid modernization on that and get you up and running. And I think a lot of times we can do it, the whole thing, and at least get people to a V1 in 12 weeks or less. It's pretty powerful. So with that, I want to get to the actual Q&A. I don't know if there's been any questions coming in there. We've got a lot of resources there. Again, my book is available for today and tomorrow only. The only way I can make it available on Kindle is for whole days. So it's available if anybody wants to get it. The book, Amazon link there. So what are you seeing there, Tad?
Yep, grab the book between now and this time tomorrow.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions that surfaced, Mike, and also Bob also put a great comment in here in the Q&A. But Derek asked, how is the determining what is and is not relevant while scanning all data in M365?
I'm sorry, you broke up there a little bit. Can you say it again?
Sorry, yes. Derek asked, how is the agent determining what is and is not relevant while scanning all data in M365?
So we showed two different agents that were in work there. The Microsoft Planner agent is a first-party agent, and it's reasoning over. And it's a great question, because you really need to know where AI is looking and what it's reasoning over, or point it in that direction. So it's working within the Planner construct. It's also working within the team itself. So Microsoft Teams, it will look in, if you can direct it to ground it into like if you've got artifacts, so like a project charter or something, it might read that. So you can direct it specifically. The second agent, which is the Teams for PM agent that we extended Teams for PM, put it on the outside, not extended, but built it around it. It's actually, you do have to be very careful of telling AI what to do and not do. So we actually, in the agent itself, it's directed at which information to look at and which to process and what not to do. And so there's, it's actually what's called a declarative agent. There's multiple types of agents you can do. In that particular case, we used a declarative agent to go in and do this. So we told it what it would do and what it would reason over and not. So we gave it the actual like table names within Teams for PM, because we obviously know those, and what to look for issues, risk, and those kind of things. So yes, you have to be specific and careful on how you ground it. Then you need to do testing, and the testing for AI is different than it was for algorithmic systems, or is for algorithmic systems. If you go to Power Apps, or if you had C# or whatever, you run a test, you expect, if you put the same data in, to get the same results every time. That's not necessarily what's going to happen with AI. So you can get down to a predictability. So you can test with frameworks, and you can actually even use excuse me, AI to help with that, and get to where you're getting a good predictable and good outcome, or good reasonable outcome. Good question.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That move to modern, one of the key first activities is sort of corralling some of the Wild West that takes place inside of Microsoft Teams. And I know that's a silly, oversimplified statement, but when PMOs and project managers can put in the right governance structure, not command and control, just governance structure around the data, and making sure things are being stored in the right place at the right time, it will really help that effort as well. Which sort of leads into Cindy's question. Thank you, Cindy. Leaders often believe AI adds risk to internal data being leaked. Do you have any feedback on this concern?
Well, it's a great question, Cindy, and the answer is they should be concerned, because if you're not careful, especially when we talked a little while ago, everybody to bring your own AI model, or somebody might be going out to Claude or Gemini or even GPT just on their desktop and not using it through the platform. If you don't, there's a little toggle. If you notice, you go to that switch in the settings, they all have it, and it says share my data to help the model learn. Well, if you do that, then it's sharing your data. And if you're reasoning over sensitive information, your sensitive information is now being shared with what the term for it is corpus, for the for the aggregate data that they're using in training the LLMs, the large language models. So you have to be very careful. Now, one of the really great things about using the M365 platform and Copilot is a lot of that, and I won't say all of it because you still need to be careful of where you allow data to go, but an awful lot of it's already kind of regulated within the way Copilot is architected. So if you're using Copilot, you'll see up there it says web or work. If you go to work, it's going to reason over your work stuff. Now, understand that it's doing that, and it could surface information that is sensitive that you have access to. So you have to be, as you pointed out, you have to be that human in the loop, right? So there's it is very important, and there's a whole discussion that can go on around making sure that you're reasoning over the right data and that you're not sharing that data remotely.
Mike, I think that wraps up the majority of the questions. Let me take one more look here.
I see Kevin. Hey, Kevin. It's been a long time.
Just saw that as well. Are we evaluating AI risk the same way we evaluate other cloud software collaboration tools or third-party platforms? That's a long question. In fact, it came up today in a conversation. Someone was trying to apply a SOC 2 thing to something, and it's like, these are not necessarily the same. So I think the jury's out on that. And collectively, the big enterprises that we trust, like Microsoft, will help us guide through that. And that's one of the advantages of trusted corporate partners. So we'll see. That's my answer anyway.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft does have a good AI governance policy and AI responsibility policy, and it's available online. You can just look it up. And they even a couple of years ago, and I assume this is still there. I haven't seen anything change on it. They even put support behind if you were using their products and there was any kind of legalities or leak or things like that. If you were using it appropriately, then they would actually back whatever remedies had to be done. So using the platform and it does move a little slower to use the platform than it does if you're just doing the Wild West. But that's true with anything, right? Any of us can go out and go do something on the web or spreadsheets without any control or governance. But when you do it inside your organization, and then you try to scale it to, it's just me doing something to me and Tad doing something to me, Tad, and the other 120 of us that there are in Innovative E, then it's a whole different ball game. Or if some of our customers have 8,000 people in their PMO, so it's the governance components of it and the responsibility is part of that scale factor. And there has to be a really good partnership between the people who are trying to build this. If you're in the PMO and you're the sponsor to get the AI integrated into it, and your IT and whoever's building it, if you have partners like us or others in there, it has to be a really close partnership to make sure you're doing it as responsibly as possible and mitigating the risk as much as possible. There's risk with any automation. So that's the best I got.
I think we'll wrap with that, Mike. Stephanie, I didn't know if you had any other closing activities.
Just to say goodbye. Thank you, Mike and Tad, and all of you for participating in today's webinar. We hope you found it valuable and informative. If we didn't answer your question or you didn't have time to submit it, feel free to reach out to us via email at info@innovative-e.com, and we'll get right back to you. And we might just use your question in an upcoming podcast episode or blog, so keep an eye out. Also, keep an eye out on your inbox for the recording of today's session and the slide deck and additional resources. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
And we do have additional resources we didn't even share. So if anybody wants to reach out, we have some other things that we can share as well. So we ran out of slide room. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tad. Thanks, Steph. Appreciate everybody attending. Have a great day.
Bye.